Today we're going to talk about how to manipulate data in your Ionic 2 applications. We're going to be talking about how to filter, map, and reduce arrays in Ionic 2. Now, this isn't anything specific to Ionic 2, it's actually just available in JavaScript in general, but we'll be using those concepts with an Ionic 2 example. So just to cover those briefly so you have some idea of what these operations are going to do, we can use a filter function on arrays to filter out data that we don't want to be in that array. We can use a map function to change the data in that array, and we can use reduce to perform some operation in the data in the array. So we're going to start out by starting a new Ionic 2 project and setting up a little bit of an example that we can have a look at and play around with. So we're just going to generate a new application with Ionic start, and we're going to call this Ionic 2 data. We're just going to use the blank template and use the v2 flag. And so we're just going to let that generate now. Okay, that's finished generating. So just to get started, we're going to change into that project we just created by running the cd command. And then we're going to serve the project. And we'll just take a look at the blank template that we have to work with. Okay, so here's the blank template. I'm just going to open up the emulator. We'll set it to the iPhone 5. And what we're going to do now is jump into the code, and we're going to make this into a more interesting example rather than just using boring data. I'm going to make a little bit of a fun app that displays some YouTubers, and we're going to run some operations on some static data that we add to that application. So I'm just going to open up that project now in Sublime. Okay, we've got the project open now. So what I'm going to do is jump into the homepage component here. We don't need to create anything else for this example. I'm just going to set up a bit of data in here as well as some functions that we're going to make use of, and then just a simple template in here that's going to display that data, and it's going to have some buttons that we can click on to perform some different operations on that data. So I'm just going to go through and code in a bunch of the boring stuff now, and then we'll walk through how to implement those functions in just a little bit. Okay, so that should be pretty good. I've got the template set up here and the TypeScript file as well. So what I've done is I've got two sets of data that we're working from. I have the original data and some modified data. So in the original data here, I've just set up some data for some YouTubers, including myself. So I've got the name, the subscriber count, an avatar, an image for the avatar, and a channel URL. And then I'm just copying that original data into this modified data variable, because we're going to be changing this, so we want an original reference to the data that we can use to reset the modified data. And the reason I'm using this weird JSON parse and JSON stringify thing here is so that we're creating a completely new copy of that array. We're not creating a reference to it. The problem is if we just created a normal reference to the array, as we perform these operations on it, the original data would get modified as well, which means we wouldn't be able to reset it anymore. And in the template here, we've just got some buttons defined at the top, which are going to call 4 different functions that we've defined in here. So the reset data function will just reset the modified data back to the original data. And then these 3 filter, map, and reduce data functions are going to be what we're working on. And then in the template, we just have a list with an ion item repeating for every YouTuber that we have listed in our data. And it's just going to display their avatar here, which is just going to be a placeholder image, not their actual avatar, their name, and their subscriber count. So if we just take a look at what it looks like now, we can jump over here. We just have this pretty standard boring looking application here. What I might do actually is make this, give this the danger color. And that might look a bit cooler. Yes, definitely. Cool. Awesome. So we have something to work with now. Now we're going to get into the interesting stuff and start making these buttons do some things to our list of data here. So let's start off by working on the filter function. So we're going to make this button here filter this data out. So we don't want the entire list of YouTubers here. We only want a subset of those YouTubers. So I'm going to jump into the code here, and we're going to define what this function does. So what we want to do is do something to the modified data, because that's what we are using for the list here. We're looping through everything in the modified data. So what we're going to do is make use of that filter function, which is available on all arrays. And remember, this isn't just for Ionic 2. This is just a function that's available on arrays in JavaScript in general. So what we're going to do is set the modified data to modified data dot filter, and this we're going to create a filter function now. And what the filter function will do is it will pass in each item or element that we have in our array. It'll pass it into this function, and then we're going to run some check on that to see whether or not we want to include it in our filtered array. So I'm going to pass in YouTuber, which will just be an individual object, so just one of these rows here. And what we need to do is return either true or false. And so if we return true, that YouTuber will be included in the data. If we return false, they won't be. So just to check that this works, I'm just going to save that, take a look at the app again, and hopefully everybody should still be there. And they are, and now I'll just change that to false, and it should have no data now. Of course, it still actually does have data because I never even clicked the button. So I'm gonna click the button first. Cool, no data. We'll switch back to true and make sure that works. I didn't click the button for that either. Cool, and everything stays there. So what we need to do is not just return true or return false. We want to perform some kind of check and return a true or false value based on that. So what I'm going to do is filter out any YouTubers that have less than 1 million subscribers. So what we can do is, instead of returning true, return YouTuber.subscribers, which is this value here. And we want that to be greater than 1 million. So now if subscribers is greater than 1 million, it's going to return true. If it's not, it's going to return false. So if I save that now, jump in here again, and click the filter button, you can see that I've disappeared, the Ionic channel's disappeared, I think Hutch disappeared as well, and just these YouTubers who have more than 1 million subscribers are left in the list. And I can hit the reset button to bring everybody back again. So that's how the filter function works. You just perform some check here, return true or false, and that will either include or it won't include that particular element in the array. Now we're going to move on to the map function. So it's going to be a similar idea here. Again, it's almost going to look exactly the same as the filter. So let me just create a map function that's going to just change the data that we have. So rather than leaving data in or out of the array, we're going to change the data that we have in the array. So we're going to do this dot modified data equals this dot modified data dot map. And again, it's the same idea. We're just going to pass in the single element again, and then we're going to run some kind of function in here that's going to do what we want. So again, with this one, rather than returning true or false, we're going to return the data that we want. So if I return YouTuber, that's just going to return the unmodified value that was passed in. So let's save that, and we'll take a look at our application. So if I click this settings, sorry, not settings button, map button now, click that, nothing happens, which is good. That's what we want. But now instead of just returning that value straight away, we're going to make some small modifications to it first. So for example, I could say YouTuber.name equals YouTuber.name to uppercase. And this is going to convert the name to uppercase. So it grabs this name here and changes it to uppercase, and then it's assigning it to YouTuber.name. So that's going to overwrite that data there. So if I save that now and come back in here, now if I click this button, everybody's name gets converted to uppercase, hit reset, changes it back again. And just to make this a little bit more interesting, we'll modify another value as well. We could modify the subscribers count, for example. So we could do YouTuber.subscribers equals YouTuber.subscribers times 10. So this is just going to make everybody's subscriber count 10 times bigger, which would be cool. So right now I have 1,700 subscribers. I click this button, my name goes to uppercase, and now I have 17,000. If you'd like to help me out with that, you can subscribe to the channel now. That'd be very cool of you. So we'll just hit reset again, set that back to the way it was before. So that's essentially how the mapping function works. Rather than filtering what's in the array, we're changing what's in the array. And there's a lot you can do with that. This is just a really simple example. And the final function we're going to work on is the reduce function. Now the reduce function is a little bit different to the rest of them. We're not really changing the array, we're performing some kind of calculation or operation on the array. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to do two different things. We're going to sum up the number of subscribers that we have for all of our YouTubers, and then we're also going to figure out who has the most subscribers out of all these YouTubers. So it's a reasonably similar process to the previous functions, but what we're going to do this time is we're going to just create a variable called sum here. I'm going to say let sum equal, then we're going to do this dot modified data dot reduce. So far it's pretty similar to the others, but this time we're going to pass in two parameters, previous and current, into our function. So if I was to do return previous plus current, this actually won't work, and I'll explain why in a second, but this is the general idea. What will happen is that, so we first get the first two elements in the array. So we get Joshua Moroney, Philip DeFranco. We add both of those subscriber counts together and we return that. And so that combined value will be passed in as the next previous parameter, and then we'll go on to Casey. We'll add that subscriber value to the combined value of these two, and then we return that to the next iteration of the function. And then again, we'll be up to Captain Sparkles. This time the previous value will be the sum of all three of these, and then we add on Captain Sparkles, and then that keeps going and going until we get to the end, and at the end we'll have the sum of all of the subscribers in the array. Now the problem with this is that the first time we run this, or for the first element, that previous value is going to be an object. But on subsequent iterations, it is going to be the sum. So it's changing from an object to a number. So what we need to do is check if we're on the first iteration, and if we are, we want to use a slightly different value. So what we can do is say let previous result equal number.isInteger previous, and then we're going to use the ternary operator here. So if the previous parameter here is a integer, we're going to use that, but if it's not, then we want to use the value from the object, which would be previous.subscribers. Now I hope I've done a decent job at explaining that, so I'll try to just quickly go over it again. So on the first time we run this, this is what we're going to get as the previous value of this whole object. So in that case, it's not a number, and we can't add an object to a number. So instead of using the parameter directly, we instead grab the subscriber property. On the next iteration, what this returns is going to be a number. So in that case, previous will be a number, and we just want to use it directly instead of trying to access the subscribers property, which we won't be able to do. So now if I was to log that out once that has completed, hopefully we should be able to see a sum of all of the subscribers. So I'll just click this button here, and that didn't work. We are concatenating a bunch of objects here. That's because I forgot to change these values here. So what we want to do is instead add previous result, rather prev result, which is what we've worked out here. And we want to add that to current.subscribers. Because the current value is what will always be passed in as the entire object. So we'll save that again and we'll have another shot. Getting close. Now I've got not a number, so let's try and figure out why this is returning not a number. Looks like I have a typo here. I can't spell subscribers. I don't think I've done that anywhere else. Let me just see. That looks good. Okay, I'll save that again and we'll try it one more time, hopefully. Okay, there we go. We finally got the sum of all the YouTubers here, which is, what is that? Millions, 24,495,000. So that sounds about right, given the subscribers here. And now we're just going to do one more example because it is a bit weird, and I kind of want to do a better job at explaining how this works. So we're also going to do a most. So we're going to see who has the most subscribers out of that list, which we can pretty easily see is Captain Sparkles, but we're going to figure that out just to make sure. So we'll do basically the same thing again. Do this dot modified data dot reduce previous, current, pass those into the function, and we're going to do a similar thing here again, but rather than adding the values together, we're going to see what the max is. So again, this just makes sure that what we're working with is a number and not an object like it will be in the first iteration of the function. And then we're going to create a max variable, and we're just going to use the math.max function to figure out which is bigger. Is it the previous result or the current subscribers, which has just been passed in. So this will return, this will be set to whatever is the largest of those two numbers, and then we just return that value. So if I save that now, and we'll also just log out most subs here along with that value, and hopefully if I jump back into the app now, click that button, hopefully we see Captain Sparkle's subscriber count there. So I'll click on that, and so we've still got the sum there, and then 9,753,000, which is Captain Sparkle's count, which is exactly what we wanted. And just for a bit of fun, I want to show you that we can continually modify that data since we can apply different operations to it. We've got the filter, and we've got the map function. I could click on this, for example, to boost everyone's subscriber numbers, make them capitals, then I could filter it, and I could boost it again, and I could do that as many times as I want. So you can very easily work with data in a list like this, and this is a pretty silly example, but you could very easily make this useful, say for some kind of shopping application. You could filter based on price or the product name, or tons of useful things like that. And these three functions for arrays, especially the filter and the map functions, you can use quite a bit, and they are really useful to know. So I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope that these explanations made sense and that you're now able to hopefully use some of these functions in your own applications. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.